Welcome everybody to a brand new video. I'm Tyler.
This is Tim.
And today we'll be teaching you how to play Deadzone. We will be going over the basics of the game, including all the actions you can take, how to win, and some of the basic feel for the game.
And in addition to this video, we'll also be putting up a couple videos that detail the factions that are available to play in Deadzone, and a video that goes over some of the special abilities that are unique to each faction.
So without further ado, let's jump into how to start a game by picking your mission. So the first thing you want to do is select your mission. There are 4 different missions, and they are chosen by rolling a D8. The game is largely based on using D8s, and there's only a few special cases where you use a different kind of die. The D8 adds a lot of flexibility to your team, to your models, and the ability to select missions, and when you get to it, campaigns and how those play out. Now the possible missions you can get by rolling the die are Patrol, Scour, Breakthrough, and Search and Destroy. So the first mission, Patrol, is a combination of objective-based play and killing the other strike team. The next mission, Scour, is essentially killing the enemy and taking items that are strewn about the field in order to boost your strike team's caches.
And then the third mission, Breakthrough, is primarily dependent on getting to the opponent's deployment zone on the other side of the board.
Finally, Search and Destroy is an all-out bloody mess where you kill the other team and try not to be killed.
After you've chosen your mission and your own strike team, you have the option to choose your secret mission. And this is done in the same way as you choose a mission, by rolling a D8 and rolling through a chart. However, each secret mission, each set of secret missions is unique to the previously chosen mission. In addition to that, the secret mission is in fact secret, as in you should not tell your opponent what it is that you're up to. Now these secret missions vary. Perhaps you will have a more emphasis on killing the enemy team in addition to the mission's objectives.
While if I rolled, I might end up rolling for objectives counting as more than killing, which adds a lot of dynamic and tactical depth to this game.
So while you may have chosen your strike team to fit the mission that was chosen, the secret mission further modifies the way that you'll be going to play.
And it can totally flip your plans upside down. Like I said before, the game is using D8s, which means there's 8 sides to each die. The game is built upon a series of tests. Now these tests will be used to determine how your soldiers fight, survive, and shoot in the Deadzone. The basic test is a 3-dice test. In Deadzone, only the number of dice you roll is modified. The result you need is never modified for any reasons. In order to get more dice, there are certain bonuses for varying tests, and to show you just a few ways that this can be used, we will go through a very basic dice test right now. The first dice roll we're going to show you how to do is the Recon test. This is a test that measures your commander's ability to get the jump on the other commander. This is done with a 5-dice X test, which means 5 dice for each strike team, and you roll against the other player. The result needed to make a success on this test is dependent on which commander you bring. So someone like a Pathfinder Sergeant is very good at the ambush and will have a 3-up Recon test roll, while something very big and clunky, like a Plague Stage 1A, will have a 5 or higher. For the sake of clarity, I will be using only colored dice, and Tim will be using white dice. So let's show you what a Recon roll looks like. For this example, we will both be rolling on a 5 or higher. So as you can see, the colored dice got 4 successes, and the white dice only got 2. However, in Deadzone, 8s explode, which means whenever you roll an 8, you get an additional dice that can be rolled and applied to your result for successes. Unfortunately, there was not a success on the secondary die, so his amount of successes is 2 compared to my 4, which means I beat him by 2 dice. In addition to getting to go first, I will also roll on a chart in the rulebook, which will give me certain advantages as if I was ambushing his team. This could be anything from looking at items to having a guy go on a flanking maneuver and attack him from behind. At this point, you would have already made your teams, and now would be the time you'd want to deploy. The team that won the recon will deploy first.
So, Deadzone is organized in rounds and turns. A turn corresponds to when a single model is activated, and an activation can be either 2 short actions or 1 long action, and these will be covered later.
It's a bit like chess in the way it goes back and forth, moving a piece by piece, alternating between players.
There are tokens in Deadzone to help you keep track of when a model has been activated. This is an activation token. So, should this unit decide to sprint a long action, he would move to his location and place this marker next to the base. This is to let both sides know that this model has been activated and can no longer take any actions for the round. And once both sides have activated all models and they've all taken their actions, that's the end of a round. Once a round is over, all the activations are reset and every unit has the opportunity to make more actions.
At the beginning of every round, there's a way to get more activations and extra bonuses for your team. This is done through a command roll. A command roll is a 3-dice test using the D6s, not D8s. This is a 3-dice test unless they are a tactician, which is a special rule which allows them to roll more than 3 dice. So since it's only a 6-sided die, there's only 6 options you can get. The first of which is an additional model activation. This will allow you to activate a model, play your command die, and you can activate a different model directly after, instead of handing the initiative over to your opponent.
And it should be noted that once you use a leadership dice, you cannot use it anymore, so you do not have the opportunity to activate 2 models for the rest of the round ad infinitum. Once you use a command dice, it goes away.
The next option allows you to add an additional die to any test of the survival, fight, or shooting nature. This is obviously advantageous because it gives you an extra die to be rolling, which gives you better odds against your opponent who might not have that ability. Third, we have the move option, which allows your model to take an additional short action move, which we will get into later, but it's extremely helpful for letting your force get farther up the map or back over to somewhere that's safe. Next, we have the shoot action. The shoot action allows you to make an additional shoot action in addition to the shoot action you already get, should you choose to take it. Similar to the shoot action, the next result is a fight result, and basically you can fight again or make another fight action after you've already used your first fight action, or just take a free fight action in general. Lastly, we have the Mantic Splat, which is the faction special rule. This will be labeled out for you in each leader's abilities, and this gives your faction a whole new flavor and allows you to do actions specific to only your faction.
Here we have some sample stat cards. At the top right, you can see 2 points values. The first one is used when you're building your strike force. And the second one, the VPs, are your victory points and are given to the opposing team whenever this model is killed. These victory points help determine the winner.
Let's talk about the 3 boxes on the left. The first box is your movement. The movement is illustrated by 2 numbers. The first number is how far your model can move in a short move, and the second is how far they can go if they use a long action sprint. In this case, this enforcer can go 1 cube on a short move and 2 cubes on a long move. The box underneath the movement stat is the armor stat for the model. The enforcer has an armor of 1, which means he is able to ignore 1 point of damage when resolving attacks being made against him. It is important to note that any weapon with an AP value will have a number next to it. An AP of 1 will ignore 1 point of armor, and so on and so forth. The last box is the size of the model. Both of these enforcers are size 1. If they were size 2, they would get certain bonuses, plus they would be harder to kill by adding more wounds. The 1 basically means that they are able to be injured once before dying on their second injury.
Directly to the right of those boxes, you have 3 additional stats: your shoot, your fight, and your survive. Beneath those stats is a number and a plus sign. This corresponds to the minimum dice result needed to score a success.
Finally, we have the weaponry that the model has, such as pistols, jump packs, or other weapons. We have the weapon options that they are able to take if you are to upgrade them. The campaign ability options, which is what they are able to upgrade when they are in a campaign. A short description of what they are called, how they work, and a little backstory to what they are. And finally, if you are a leader, you can see the faction special rule and what you can roll on a recon roll, depending on which leader you bring.
So Deadzone is played on an 8x8 map, but it's important to consider these squares as actually cubes. It's a three-dimensional game, and height is a factor in many situations. The first action that we're going to discuss is the move action, and this is the bread and butter way of moving about the board. However, a unit can move as many squares as his speed stat allows. So, for example, this Marauder has a speed stat of 1, meaning that he can move 1 cube in any direction, which means he can move here, 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 and because there is a wall to climb up, he is even able to move upwards. It should be noted that a model needs a clear path to wherever it is that they're going, which is to say that this unit could not move diagonally here, even though it is within his speed value, because it is obstructed by these buildings.
The size of the gap in the scenery allows certain sizes of models to be able to pass through them. This one, for example, would be a size 1 to 2, 1 to 2, maybe a 1 if it's small enough, 1 through 3, and finally a solid wall, which would be no one passing through.
In addition to the move action, which is considered a short action, the model can also sprint, a long action. This is also determined by the speed stat, so for the Marauder, the sprint value is 2, which is to say that this Marauder can move 2 squares in just about any direction, even diagonally. The sprint action can also be used to climb. He wouldn't normally be able to get to the top of this building with a regular move, but with sprint, he can move the 2 squares upwards and find himself in a prime shooting position. However, it must be noted that because sprinting is a long action normally, he would not be able to take any more actions for the round and would be activated.
The next action we will be looking at is the shoot action. As the name implies, this is when a model uses their weapon to shoot at the enemy in an attempt to kill them. In order to shoot something, first, you must determine if the model can see the model it is going to shoot at. The best way to determine if your model can see the enemy is to get down to the model's eye's perspective. If they can see the enemy, then they are allowed to shoot. This can be done by just looking as if you were the model in the Deadzone. When determining to see if you can see a model, any part of the model is included. That includes the base, hairstyles, hats, weapons, flags, anything of that sort of nature. If you can see any part of the model, you are allowed to take a shoot action. First thing you do after checking for line of sight on a model is measure your range value, which is given in a length of cubes. A range of RF means range fight, and that weapon can only be used in hand-to-hand combat. Otherwise, count out how far away, in cubes mind you, how far the enemy is from your firing model. In this case, the Enforcer will be shooting at the Marauder, and he can clearly see him. The shoot test is a 3-dice test that is rolled against the model's shoot stat and the surviving model's survive stat. The base shoot action starts at 3 dice and can be modified depending on your model's positioning. For this example, there are no modifiers applied. So, the Enforcer would roll 3 dice, needing a 4-up, in order to cause any damage to the Orc. The Enforcer got 2 successes. The Marauder's survive stat will also be rolled and compared to the Enforcer's shoot stat. Getting 1 success and an 8, the Marauder got 2 successes, as did the Enforcer. Nothing happens, the shots are fired, but no damage occurs. If, for example, the Marauder only got 1 die, but the Enforcer got 2, the Enforcer wins by 1. Now we get into how you damage something. Each model in Deadzone has a certain amount of punishment they can take before they die, as a casualty of war. In this example, the Enforcer scored 2 successes as compared to the Commando's 1. The successful dice are compared, and so the 1 will cancel out one of the Enforcer's successes, leaving 1 point of potential damage. Potential damage is how much damage that the model will take. This can be affected by armor. Armor ignores 1 point of potential damage per point on your armor stat. Commando, in this case, has no armor, and he will take 1 point of damage, meaning he will be injured for the rest of the game unless he's repaired by a medic or medical equipment. For the sake of argument, if the Enforcer scored 3 successes on its shoot stat and the surviving model only got 1, that would mean that both potential damages go through, and this model would take 2 injury points. Since he's only size 1 model, that means he's actually dead. Being caught out in the open is a dangerous thing in Deadzone. It offers 2 extra dice for the model shooting if he can see 100% of the model, like in this case. That means this Enforcer will be rolling 5 dice to the Commando's 3 dice. Another modifier for shooting actions is if your model is on a higher level than the target model, you get an additional die. The final modifier for shooting actions is if you are shooting at a target that is in the same cube as your friendly model. This is a friendly fire and is a -2 to your shoot action because you don't want to shoot your own guy. To show you what this looks like in action, the Enforcer will be taking a shot at the orc at the bottom. Starting off with 3 dice base, 2 for clear shot, and 1 more for being elevated, he will be rolling a total of 6 die compared to the orc's 3 dice. An alternative to the normal shoot action is called firing for effect. Rapid fire or firing for effect gives you +1 to your shooting roll. This is rolled against the opponent's survive stat. Instead of causing any damage, the sole purpose of rolling to fire for effect is to make the other model pinned. If you roll more successes than they do, simple as that, this model would be pinned.
The third action available to models in Deadzone is the fight action. And this is when a model decides to get his hands dirty and engage his enemy in close combat. A fight action can be initiated anytime a model uses a move action to enter a square or cube already occupied by an enemy model. Just like the shoot test, fighting is a 3 dice test base. So when a model moves into a cube occupied by an enemy model, he is initiating a fight. He will be rolling a fight test using his fight stat. The opposing model can either choose to roll a fight test where he fights back or a survive test. When a survive test is chosen, there is no chance of causing damage to the model that initiated the fight test. However, there are instances when there is a better chance of using a survive stat as opposed to a fight stat. Like shooting, there are potential modifiers in a fight action. We're going to discuss 4 of them right now. The first one is granted when the model charges into the square. So when a model moves into a square to engage in close combat, he is automatically granted 1 additional dice. On top of that, if the opposing model is already locked in combat with another model, he will receive an additional dice. And again, the size stat comes into play here. When a larger model is attacking a smaller model, he again gains an additional dice. Finally, if the model being attacked is already wounded, the model making the attack gets an extra dice to roll. So in this example, we would see that as this model moves into attack, he automatically has his 3 dice. On top of that, for moving in, he has his charge dice. He's charging into combat with a friendly model in the same square for an extra dice, and the model that he is attacking is already wounded. Again, another dice. There are situations in Deadzone that would result in a model becoming pinned, either through suppressing fire or a catastrophic effect of some sort. When this happens, the model will be shown on its side, giving the opposing team an opportunity for some more modifiers when it comes to close combat. in this case, 1 extra dice in their roll. Damage is resolved just like in a shooting scenario. The number of successes rolled against the opposing team's successes determines how much potential damage is dealt, and these is further resolved by the other stats.
One of the simplest actions to be understood is the stand-up action. This is a short action that has to be used when your model is pinned from any sort of attack. If your model's pinned, the first thing they have to do is use a short action to stand up. There is one last kind of action that can be done. It is a short action called a special action. This is a catch-all term that is used for any sort of special scenario. For example, a Pathfinder marking his target and giving bonuses to his team. Also found in Deadzone are items that are scattered about the board when you first initially start. These items can be picked up by moving over them, checking what they are, keep them secret from your opponent. And these items can be used for modifying tests or other things, depending on what you pick up at later points in the game. Some missions even depend on picking up items to score victory points. Thanks for tuning in to our How to Play of Deadzone. I highly recommend this game. It is extremely fast, fun, and bloody, which is all you can ever ask for in a war game.
We hope that it was helpful, at least to some extent.
Check out our other videos for the additional rules, for the special rules, and how to build your strike team. Remember, this is a fun game, and the best way to learn is to go out and play it. So I highly recommend you go do that, read the rulebook. It's far better at explaining this stuff than we are, but I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like what you saw, please hit the like button, comment, subscribe, keep rolling 8s, and we will see you next time.